She sat there on camera and told on herself. She looked into the lens, she smiled about it, she flashed the ring, she called somebody else disrespectful. And in that exact same breath, she wrote her own indictment for the last 12 months of her life. Claressa Shields, the woman who calls herself the greatest woman of all time in boxing, the two-time Olympic gold medalist, the undisputed heavyweight champion, the $8 million win record signee for 2026, that Claressa Shields, just handed the entire internet the receipt that proves she has been the villain in her own story the whole time. And she did it voluntarily on video, with her whole chest, thinking she was scoring a point. She was not scoring a point. She was building the case against herself. And what nobody is talking about is that this is not one clip taken out of context. This is not a gotcha edit. This is not some blogger stitching together a highlight reel to make her look bad. This is her, in her own voice, applying a moral standard to Ryan Garcia that, if you apply it back to her, ends her entire public defense of the Papoose situation in one sentence. Everything you've been arguing about for the last year, well, maybe they were separated, well, maybe it wasn't like that, well, she deserves love too, all of it just got vaporized by the woman who benefits from those arguments the most. And here's the part that is going to make some of y'all uncomfortable, because when we get to the text messages piece later in this video, when we get to the 11-year friendship that just publicly imploded, when we get to what her own former best friend went online and said about her, you are going to realize that the Ryan Garcia clip is not even the worst thing she has said about herself this year. It is just the most recent. Two timelines have been running side by side. The one she wants you to watch, and the one her own words have been building brick by brick. And they were never separate stories. They are the same story. And she is the one telling it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me set the table properly, because a lot of y'all are just tuning into this whole saga, and I need everybody on the same page before we start pulling receipts. Because if you do not understand the full history, the hypocrisy does not hit the way it is supposed to hit. Claressa Shields is arguably the most decorated female boxer in American history. 2 Olympic gold medals, first American boxer of any gender to win back-to-back Olympic golds, undisputed champion in multiple weight classes, and as of 2026, she is coming off a fresh $8 million boxing deal with Win Records and Salida Promotions, with a February 22nd title defense at Little Caesars Arena and a scheduled return to middleweight to face Case Scott on DAZN. On paper, this woman is at the top of the mountain. On paper, she is the face of the sport. On paper, she should be untouchable. That is the paper version. Now, let me give you the real version. Because parallel to the boxing career, there is another story that has been playing out publicly since late 2024, and it is the story that has slowly, quietly, systematically eaten her public image alive. In December of 2024, Remy, the veteran New York rapper, went online and publicly accused her husband Papoose, real name Shamil Mackey, of having an affair with Claressa Shields. Remy did not just make the accusation. Remy posted what she said were text messages, real ones. Messages that reportedly showed Claressa expressing romantic interest in Papoose, reportedly showed a level of communication and intimacy that would be inappropriate for a woman she publicly called a friend, reportedly showed exactly the kind of behind-the-back movement that Claressa herself would later say she found disrespectful when Ryan Garcia did a far, far lesser version of it to her. That is the context. That is the setup. That is the powder keg. Now fast forward through 2025. The couple goes public. They walk red carpets together. Papoose says on The Breakfast Club he had been asking Remy for a divorce for a long time. Remy fires back that they were still living together, still sharing space, still functioning as a married couple when Claressa entered the picture. In May of 2025, Papoose reportedly files for divorce. Remy offers publicly to help pay for the divorce attorney and says Claressa can chip in too. By late 2025 into 2026, the couple is reportedly engaged. Claressa is flashing a rock. The internet is losing its mind. And in the middle of all of that noise, Claressa sits down for a completely unrelated promotional interview, gets asked about Ryan Garcia sliding into her DMs, and delivers the single most self-incriminating sound bite of her entire career. So what are the stakes here? The stakes are her legacy as the face of women's boxing. The stakes are her role model status for a generation of young girls who were told she was the blueprint. The stakes are her upcoming pay-per-view numbers, because casual fans do not buy fights from people they think are villains. The stakes are whether the culture is going to keep letting her rewrite reality in real time. And the one question this whole video answers is a simple one. If the standard you applied to Ryan Garcia is the standard, then what does that make you? Because she just told us, and she does not even realize it. Let me get into the evidence, because I want to walk through this piece by piece, and I want you to see how airtight this is, how she literally cannot argue her way out of it, and how the pattern goes so much deeper than one clip. Piece of evidence number 1. The Ryan Garcia DM clip itself. She is sitting on camera. She is asked about Ryan Garcia sliding into her DMs. She laughs, she rolls her eyes, and she says, and I am quoting the language she used in the interview and in her follow-up commentary, that she found it disrespectful. She said, "My rock is bigger than his head." She said, "Why would you do that knowing I'm engaged?" She frames Ryan Garcia, a man who by every public account did not know her personally, did not have a relationship with any woman she was close to, did not violate any friendship, did not owe her any loyalty beyond the general loyalty of not sliding into an engaged woman's DMs. She frames him as the villain of that story. And under her stated moral code, he is. That is her rule. That is her stated principle. Somebody knowingly propositions a person who is in a committed relationship. That is disrespectful. That is the line. She drew it. Not me. Not Twitter. Her. Now, piece of evidence number 2. The receipts Remy Ma posted in December 2024. According to the messages Remy reportedly published, and this has been covered by Complex, by Hot New Hip Hop, by The Root, by Yahoo, by multiple credible hip-hop outlets, the alleged communication between Claressa and Papoose was not somebody sliding into somebody else's DMs one time from the outside as a stranger. This was reportedly 2 people who moved in the same public circle, who had reportedly interacted as associates, and reportedly the messages showed a woman actively pursuing a man she knew was married. Not engaged. Married. Legally married. With a child. Living in the same household as his wife. And who was that wife? A woman Claressa had reportedly called a friend. A woman Claressa had reportedly been in Remy's DMs asking for help, according to what has been reported from Remy's side of the story. A woman Claressa had reportedly embraced publicly. Piece of evidence number 3. The 11-year friendship that just publicly ended. Claressa's own former best friend of over 11 years went on social media, on Instagram, and openly claimed that Papoose is now trying to alienate Claressa from her longtime friends. That is not a Remy Ma quote. That is not a Papoose defender. That is the woman who allegedly knew Claressa longer than most of the people in her current life. And when your ride or die of over a decade goes public with a statement like that, that is not internet drama. That is a witness. That is a person who has watched the transformation and decided the transformation is too far gone to defend anymore. And piece of evidence number 4. The Remy Ma versus Claressa Shields exchange on X that popped off in the fall, where Remy called Claressa out for reportedly being back in Papoose's DMs even after the divorce filing, and Claressa fired back with shade. And the whole internet watched 2 grown women trade blows over the same man in real time. That is not the behavior of the empowered woman she claims to be in interviews. That is the behavior of somebody who is losing the plot in public and losing it loud. So look at what we have. We have her own stated moral rule from the Ryan Garcia clip. We have the alleged text message receipts from December of 2024. We have the former best friend of 11 years going public. We have the ongoing X exchanges with the wife. Every single one of these pieces of evidence is her, or it is a person who has known her, or it is the direct target of her own alleged behavior. None of this is manufactured by the internet. All of it is documented. And we are only on the surface layer. And oh, do I have more for you? Because the surface stuff, the clip, the tweets, the ring flash, the interviews, that is just what the algorithm serves up. That is what casuals see. That is the version of this story that trends for a day and disappears. But there's a whole other layer underneath, a whole cultural conversation happening inside the hip-hop community, inside the boxing community, inside the circles of women who know how this game actually works. And if you thought the Ryan Garcia clip was damning, wait until you hear what the people who actually know these players have been quietly saying. The stands are really not going to like this next part. Because the truth is, everybody has known for months. Everybody. The insiders were just waiting for her to say it out loud herself. And she just did. Let me get into the cultural layer, because this is where the story stops being about one clip and starts being about how an entire community has been watching one woman rewrite herself in slow motion. And the community has receipts too. Cultural Evidence Piece 1. The Remy Ma expose in December 2024. When Remy went online and dropped the alleged text messages, she did not do it as a rapper cutting a promotional record. She did it as a woman who had reportedly gone through her husband's phone and found something that reportedly gutted her. That emotional weight, that public act of vulnerability from a woman who has spent her whole career being tough. That is what made the hip-hop community pay attention. Because Remy Ma is not a soft target. Remy Ma has been in this game for over 2 decades. She has bodied battle rappers. She has held down the throne as one of the most respected female MCs in New York, and she does not go public with personal pain unless the pain is real. When she posted those messages, the culture read that as confirmation, not accusation, confirmation, because the industry had been whispering about it for months already, and Remy finally saying it out loud gave everyone else permission to say what they had already been thinking. Cultural evidence piece 2. The reactions from other women in hip-hop and in boxing. And I want to be careful here because a lot of women have been diplomatic in public, but if you actually go and read the room, if you go and look at who has publicly co-signed Claressa versus who has stayed silent, the silence is deafening. Women who used to promote her, women who used to repost her, women who used to publicly champion her as the face of female empowerment in sports, a lot of them went quiet in December 2024 and never came back. That is not a coincidence. That is a community collectively pulling back their public endorsement because they saw what she was allegedly doing to another woman. And they made a decision. Cultural evidence piece 3. Papoose's own Breakfast Club appearance, where he tried to clean it up. He went on Charlemagne's platform and gave his version. Said he had asked for divorce numerous times. Tried to paint the picture that the marriage was effectively over. Tried to give Claressa cover. And the entire hip-hop internet, including a lot of neutral parties, immediately clocked the problem. Even if you accept Papoose's version at face value, even if you believe the marriage was emotionally over, asked for a divorce numerous times, and legally divorced are not the same thing. Living under the same roof as your wife and being legally married to her is not the same as being available. And every woman watching that Breakfast Club episode understood that immediately, because women know the difference between he says his marriage is over and his marriage is legally over. That is a distinction Claressa herself drew in the Ryan Garcia clip. She was engaged, not married, and she called Ryan Garcia disrespectful for not respecting that engagement. So by her own standard, what does a legal marriage require? Cultural evidence piece 4. The 11-year friend going public. I mentioned this in the surface section, but I need to expand on it here, because culturally, this one hits different. In the hip-hop community, in the black community broadly, in women's sports culture, long-term female friendships are sacred. A friend of 11 years is not a friend. That is family. That is somebody who was there before the gold medals. That is somebody who was there before the money, before the belts, before the endorsement deals, before Papoose was ever in the picture. And when that person, that specific person, goes on Instagram and publicly says that the new man in your life is alienating you from your real support system, that is a red flag the size of a stadium. That is not a hater. That is not a jealous ex-friend making up stories. That is somebody who watched the transformation and decided to warn the public what she has been watching happen behind the scenes. And I know some of you are going to say, well, we do not know both sides. We do not know what happened between them. Maybe the friend has her own motives. And that is fair. That is a fair pushback. But here is my response. When a pattern of behavior has this many independent witnesses, when the wife is saying it, when the 11-year best friend is saying it, when the alleged text messages are saying it, when her own recent Ryan Garcia interview is saying it, at some point Occam's razor kicks in. At some point the simplest explanation is that all of these people are describing the same woman accurately, and she is the one who is not seeing herself clearly. Because that is what her own former friend was really trying to say. She sees you. Everybody sees you, except you. Now this is the part where I need everybody to lock in. Because up to this point, we have been talking about the drama. We have been talking about the clips, the receipts, the friendships, the wife. That is the entertainment layer. That is the part that makes the tweets go viral. But there is a bigger story here. And it is the story that separates the people who are following this, because it is messy from the people who are following this, because they understand what is actually being revealed. And what is actually being revealed is a full system breakdown of what female empowerment in sports has become, and how that language has been weaponized to shield behavior that has nothing to do with empowerment at all. Let me break this down across 3 layers, because it goes deeper than one woman. Layer 1, the empowerment language grift. There is a specific rhetorical move that certain public women have been running for the last decade, and it works like this. You get famous. You build a platform on female empowerment language. You give speeches about being a role model, about being a queen, about lifting up other women, about how women should support women. You make that language your brand. And then when you do something that directly contradicts every value you have publicly claimed to hold, you retreat back into that same empowerment language as a shield. Well, I deserve love. Well, women should be allowed to be happy. Well, don't police my choices. Well, I am my own woman. And a lot of well-intentioned people fall for it, because the language is designed to make anyone who criticizes you look like they are attacking women in general. But that is not what is happening. What is happening is a specific woman is being critiqued for specific behavior that has nothing to do with her being a woman, and everything to do with her allegedly doing something to another woman that she herself would call disrespectful in any other context. The empowerment language, when it is used this way, is not empowerment. It is cover. And Claressa has been running that specific play for the entire duration of this saga. Layer 2, the sports celebrity insulation system. This is bigger than her, and this is why I want everybody to understand it. When you are a top-tier athlete, especially one signing $8 million deals, the entire industry around you has a financial incentive to protect your image. The promoters need you sellable. The networks need you sellable. The sponsors need you sellable. The publicists need you sellable. So when personal drama threatens the sellability, an entire machinery kicks in. Friendly interviews get booked to reframe the narrative. Unfriendly interviewers do not get access. Social media teams get more disciplined. The athlete gets media trained on how to redirect any uncomfortable question back to the sport. And for the most part, this system works. It has worked for a lot of athletes with much bigger skeletons than what we are discussing today. But the system has one fatal weakness. The athlete has to cooperate. The athlete has to stay on script. And what happened in the Ryan Garcia interview was Claressa going off script. She got asked a softball question about a rival's disrespect, and she reached for the empowerment language. And she landed on the one specific phrasing that undoes her entire personal defense. That is not the media's fault. That is not the interviewer's fault. That is what happens when the shield you have been using becomes the same shield somebody can use against you. And she does not have a media team big enough to walk that one back, because she said it in her own words, on her own face, on her own time. Layer 3. The accountability vacuum in modern celebrity culture. This is the deepest layer, and this is the one I want you to sit with. 20 years ago, if a public figure got caught in a contradiction this stark, that contradiction would follow them everywhere. Every interview would open with it. Every headline would reference it. There was a media ecosystem that enforced consistency, even brutally sometimes. Today, that ecosystem has been replaced by a fragmented attention economy, where a public figure can survive almost anything by simply outlasting the news cycle. Post enough workout videos, post enough fight promos, post enough glam pictures, and the algorithm will eventually bury the receipts under new content. And that is the strategy Claressa has been running. Wait it out. Post through it. Change the subject. Sign a new deal. Book a new fight, flash a new ring, and it has been working, until she opened her mouth on the Ryan Garcia thing and undid a year of narrative management in a single interview. Because here is what her PR team cannot bury. Her own voice, on video, applying a moral rule that indicts her. You cannot algorithm your way out of your own quote. You cannot post through your own principle. And that is why this specific clip is different from every other clip in this saga. This is not somebody else accusing her. This is not a rival trying to hurt her career. This is her, on the record, saying the exact thing that ends her defense. And the three-layer system I just walked you through, the empowerment language grift, the celebrity insulation machinery, and the accountability vacuum. None of those three systems can save her from a quote she said herself. All three of those systems require her to not do what she just did. And she did it anyway. Now I want to walk into the biggest truth of this whole video, and I want you to sit with it. Because this is the part that is going to bother people. This is the part where I stop being a commentator, and I just tell you what I actually think is happening. Claressa Shields is not just contradicting herself. She is telling you exactly what she knows to be true, and admitting she does not care. That is a different thing than hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is when you do not see the contradiction. What she is doing is deeper. She sees the contradiction. She just calculates correctly that the culture will not enforce it against her. So she says it anyway. She calls Ryan Garcia disrespectful for propositioning an engaged woman, knowing full well she went further than that with a married man whose wife she reportedly called friend. And she says it on camera because she has done the math and decided that her fame, her belts, her upcoming $8 million deal, her role as the alleged face of women's boxing, all of that will insulate her from having to answer for it. And here is the truth bomb, the part one want everybody to really absorb. She is right about the culture, and the culture is wrong. Because the standard she applied to Ryan Garcia is the standard. That is the rule. Knowingly pursuing somebody you know is in a committed relationship is disrespectful. She said it. She was correct when she said it. She just does not want it applied to her, and she has correctly guessed that a large enough portion of the audience will let her have that exemption because they like her, because she is talented, because she has been branded as the face of empowerment, because criticizing her feels like criticizing women in general, and because the algorithm rewards new content over old accountability. But allegedly propositioning a married man for sex, allegedly offering him money to leave his wife and daughter, allegedly weaponizing a friendship with the wife as reconnaissance for the affair, because that is what the Remy side allegations describe, and those specific allegations have been reported by multiple credible hip-hop outlets. That is not a matter of two adults finding love. That is, in the framing that has been publicly discussed, targeted behavior against another woman. And the woman who did it is the same woman selling herself as the empowerment queen. That is the truth bomb. Not that she is a bad person. Not that she deserves to be canceled. The truth bomb is that the entire brand she has built her post-boxing identity around, the role model, the face of women in sport, the empowerment voice, is not compatible with the alleged behavior the receipts describe. And she has just on camera applied a moral standard to somebody else that closes the loop and locks the case. She is her own worst enemy because she is the only person in this whole story with the power to actually sink her own defense. And she keeps doing it. Every interview, every subtweet, every ring flash, every clip. She is not being taken down by Remy. She is not being taken down by the internet. She is not being taken down by Ryan Garcia. She is being taken down by Claressa Shields, and everybody watching in real time is just documenting the demolition. But here is where the story turns. And here is why I actually stay optimistic about how this ends. Because the truth always wins. Always. It may take a month, it may take a year, it may take 5 years, but the truth is undefeated. And in this specific story, the person who has moved with integrity, the person who has actually behaved like a woman with values throughout this entire ordeal, is not the one with the $8 million deal. It is Remy Ma. Remy Ma got publicly humiliated, allegedly had her marriage broken up, allegedly had a woman she trusted turn on her in the ugliest possible way, and instead of crashing out publicly, instead of losing herself to bitterness, instead of trying to destroy Claressa's career, Remy went online, dropped what she had, told her truth, and then went back to her life. She kept rapping. She kept mothering her children. She kept showing up for her communities. She did not weaponize her fame to try to end another woman. She just told her story and moved on. And that is what integrity looks like in the middle of a public storm. That is what a real role model looks like, not a woman who talks about empowerment while doing the opposite, but a woman who lives through betrayal and comes out the other side without losing her own values in the process. Every woman watching this saga has been able to see the contrast. One woman is on record allegedly pursuing another woman's husband and then a year later gets on camera and calls somebody else disrespectful for a lesser version of what she allegedly did. The other woman got wronged, said her piece, and kept it moving with her dignity intact. And when the smoke clears, when the ring flash stops trending, when the $8 million deal is old news, when the algorithm has moved on to the next scandal, the woman with the receipts is not going to be the one people remember as the villain. The woman with the empowerment speeches and the contradicting quotes is. That is how these things always land. That is why every generation of hip-hop has a Remy Ma figure who takes the L in the moment and wins the long game. Because the culture eventually catches up. The culture always catches up. And in this specific story, the culture is already catching up because you are watching this video. You are having this conversation. You are seeing the pattern. The system that Claressa was banking on to bury this, the algorithm, the media machine, the empowerment language shield. That system is being outrun by simple math. Her quote plus the receipts equals the answer, and no amount of new content can change the arithmetic. So the hero of this story, in the way heroes actually exist in real life, is not a superhero. It is just the person who moved with integrity when they had every excuse not to. And in this saga, that is Remy. That is Papoose's daughter, who did not ask for any of this. That is the 11-year best friend who spoke up when she saw her friend losing herself. Those are the quiet heroes. And they are going to be fine. They are already fine. The right people in the long run are always going to be fine. And this is only the start of what is coming with this story, because we have got two very specific developments to track from here, and I need you subscribed for both of them. Development 1. the February 22nd title defense at Little Caesars Arena, and the follow-up Case Scott fight on DAZN. Because how the crowd reacts, how the ring walk lands, how the pay-per-view numbers come in, is going to tell us in real hard numbers whether the culture has actually clocked the contradiction or whether the empowerment shield is still holding. If the numbers are soft, if the crowd is quiet, if the promotional cycle feels flat, that is the market telling us something that no interview can spin. And I am going to be tracking those numbers with you the day they drop. Development 2, the divorce finalization and everything that comes with it. Because remember, in the reporting, Remy has offered to pay for the divorce attorney, and there are allegedly still contested pieces of that separation moving through legal channels. Every filing, every court date, every leaked document is going to be its own new chapter in the story, and I'm going to be here for every single one of them. So if you are not subscribed yet, that is the move right now, because there is no way to keep up with this without me. And listen, the next video I am dropping is going to break down the specific text messages Remy Ma reportedly posted in December of 2024, line by line, with a timeline overlay, showing exactly which messages line up with which public appearances Claressa was making at the same time. So you can see for yourself how one hand was smiling in a woman's face, while the other hand was allegedly in her husband's phone. That video is going to hurt. That video is going to answer questions this one did not have room for. And if you thought this one was damaging, wait until you see the message-by-message breakdown. Click through to that one now, before the algorithm buries it, and I will see you inside it. Because when the receipts do the talking, all we have to do is sit back and read.